Hello there, commanders, and welcome to another episode of SUNTZU Podcast. Today with me I have Astolfo,
Hello, everyone.
Fogsgod,
What's up?
and Arklinon.
Hey, people.
And we're going to talk about general balance issues that we have with the game, some mechanics, and then since closed beta is approaching us, it's only 1 month away at the time of the recording. We are going to share some of our predictions and questions we might have about that. So, let's start with the balance, and let's start with elephants. What do you guys think about elephants and their balance, whether they sit within the overall meta, how strong they are, etc., especially considering in the light of the new game mode?
And nobody's going to say they're the elephant in the room.
No, I was waiting for you guys to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, me too, man.
That's
Well,
a
in
very
theory-
great start. Everybody is too shy to start.
Okay, so theoretically speaking, because of the Conquest game mode, it's important to stay on one point, and elephants being, well, elephants, kind of hit point sacks, should be able to hold a point very well until they see some javelins. With that in mind, they might be very, very strong, all things considered, because they're also relatively fast. Because of this game mode, I'm afraid they might be a little overpowered, so some tweaks may be required.
I mean, in my opinion, since day one as a infantry player, like, I lose models, I lose damage, they don't lose damage as they go lower health. Like, I've never enjoyed that trade.
That's a good point. Yeah, they fundamentally do have that mechanic.
Well, I also agree with that they are overpowered, although for different reasons. And also, it's not like they were balanced before and now they're only overpowered in this new game mode. I think they were overpowered before, and now because of the new game mode, they are even more overpowered.
Yeah, just
Because-
strategically.
Yes, because they are very, very good at controlling the points and rather getting the points or interrupting the point capture. Holding, not really, because you can't hold the enemy units away from the point, because they're just going to fight you on top of it if they want to. But as an elephant, 9 times out of 10 you can take that fight, right? And it's rather the enemy that cannot take the fight, that needs to run away from you if you are approaching the point. And even if the javelins approach, well, you can just chase off the javelins. And we have to remember that it's a team game, right? So it's not that elephants are alone and not supported by anything. And then the enemy
That's
gets all kind of repertoire of mixed arms to deal with those elephants. So elephants are definitely above average when it comes to strength, utility. So yeah, it's a very good unit to have. And I'd rather have elephants than pretty much any other unit in my team. Obviously, not only elephants, but who knows? 30 elephants would be funny.
One other
Please, Astolfo, go.
One other thing that elephants do really well is not only can they dictate the fight because they can stampede through like melee screen units and stuff like that. They can stomp you, displace your units, and things like that. But there's no like route mechanic for them or take bonus damage or anything like every other unit, right? If I get routed, I'm going to be punished for it. And this is all exponentially worse. Everything we've said, the lower you go down in the tiers, because you just don't have the damage to get through them. I mean, sure, in tier 8, Vengeance can slice through them. Yeah, but in tier 5, when they open up, my God, if you don't have javelins or pikes running around, they just run over your army.
Yeah, the elephants are the only unit in the game that can just straight up walk through other units and not give a fuck about it, unless those are pikes. But every other unit, they just straight up ignore. And yeah, if you want to hold a point against elephants, you can, because they're just gonna walk through and ignore you. You want to protect your ranged units, you can. They're gonna walk through and start chasing the ranged units. Alright, and ranged units either run away or die. And they need to, commit so much resources to just stop an elephant player. So in order to stop an elephant player, you need maybe coordination between 2 or 3 players of your own team. And then that's 3 versus 1, and then do the other 2 equivalent players from the team of elephants they get free reign. They can do whatever the hell they want, and they can support the elephants. So yeah, that's why elephants are so strong. They were very strong before, and now because of the new game mode, because of the addition of capture points, they got an additional strength at what they're good at.
They also make spears look super derpy when they're in phalanx, and they just like move through them, and then your phalanx like runs forward, backward, trying to like stare at the elephant.
Yeah, I mean, they did address that, right? So between patch, the first Pioneer patch and the second Pioneer patch, we got a slight tweak to elephants. And one of the nerfs was that spear units are now getting bonus versus large, or maybe it was I think it was specifically against elephants, not just versus large. Where spears deal 1.25, I think, damage to elephants, but that doesn't really hurt. That didn't change anything. All Germanicus with Vengeance will always be better in terms of infantry versus elephants, so it's not like spear suddenly became a counter to them. But anyway, those are all the reasons, right, that's why elephants are broken. So let's maybe talk about some solutions. How would you guys fix, how would you nerf the elephants, or maybe buff all their units or whatever? Go on, Arcleon. How would you fix them?
Who?
You. How would you fix them, the elephants?
Very simple. Add morale. Add more, because elephants, despite their size, are actually very scaredy animals. So even when you do train them right, you can't really train that fear out. You know, the whole stereotype with mice, whatever. But they are very scaredy animals. So
I mean, Mythbusters did check it. They are actually afraid of mice for some reason.
Yes. Well, yeah. Definitely. So add morale to them. Like if they are overwhelmed, if they take too much damage within too short of a time, they should rout. They should start running amok. They should, running amok was a mechanic in the old Total War games, and it was kind of awesome. It made elephants an unpredictable force on the battlefield. So that would be fix number one. The other thing would be is to test them very well. Like, honestly, this game will live or die on its Q&A department. And yes, we will have to be a bit of a Q&A department ourselves, but this balancing is going to be essential. It needs to be tested. The builds need to be tested. So people will need to come up with some specific builds, using them and countering them, because a unit is only as good as it is supported, as we have seen in all the card games. A card, it can win the game outright, but it's not going to be important if there is no synergy with that card. And right now, what we're complaining of is the combined arms. So combined arms is what makes it difficult. The fact that elephants can get support and can synergize so well with so many units is a problem that needs to be reduced. Anti-large, I would definitely add that to spears, to pikes. That could be important, or maybe make our arrows do more damage, make elephants have a lot less armor on the back. So that could be a good thing. Kiting them is a lot of fun. We must not forget the fun factor in the game. And kiting elephants was one of the most fun things I was doing in the previous versions. Kite them out, hit them from the back, they can't do anything, lower armor from the back. And I think combining all of these solutions, namely add morale to elephants, have them run amok, test them to see how they interact with combined arms and make stat changes based on that. And 3, make them take a lot more damage, or maybe even morale damage from the back.
Okay, so I'd like to address the points. First, the thing that you said, that the game will live and die by its QA department. Obviously, it is going to be important, but I think marketing department will be more important, and since it has a lot more things to step up.
I mean, that's pretty much a given.
Yes,
that's
like
one of those.
QA department is of balancing, right? We are complaining about balance mainly in this podcast, but let's also say it outright, almost at the very beginning of the podcast, right? that the balance in Total War Arena is really good. Those are the exceptions that we're talking about
Yes.
now that still need fixing or slight tweaking, but there are still issues. And elephants, kind of pun not intended, there's quite a big issue. Although it's not really a pun, but whatever. It's just a shit joke. I really like the idea of them losing morale over time as they're fighting, so that would mean that you need to try to have a hit and run with them, or maybe hit and run through in case of elephants, because them being able to run through is, I think, something that you need to keep, because that just deals so well with camper teams, especially with heavy artillery, which we're going to touch upon later. If there's a heavy artillery position that is heavily defended with units, with stakes, as long as those aren't pikes, you can just walk through them and walk on top of the heavy artillery if it doesn't run away.
Let me interject on something real quick on this. Conquest mode that was added, I believe, fundamentally solves this problem as long as we have balanced heavy artillery. Because if you have a team that is sitting on 1 or 2 points, where there are 3 more points to go, the enemy can simply cap those and win. So that pretty much negates that whole thing. So camping might not be as big of a deal as we were used to.
Yeah, camping in that sense, right? But more like just defensive positions. And they're really good at breaking them. And yeah, I do agree with that, the new game mode definitely helps a lot with the camping issue. Let's take, for example, Turtle Book Forest, right? You have such a great advantage in your spawning points. Why the hell would you ever abandon those advantages and go and fight, right? So if both Turtle Book Forest teams were, smart and wanted to go about winning the battle in the most efficient way, they would never fight each other because they would both just stay in their spawns. But the introduction of those cap points actually forces the teams to fight for unfavorable positions. Right? Give up the favorable position for actually having the points, which is what ultimately wins you the game. So that helps with it. But I had a counter, but I forgot what to. So I'll let you, Arcleon, continue, and maybe it will come back to me, or anybody else maybe wants to pick up Fox Yours also.
So yes, that's also something we need to consider, that the new game mode fundamentally changes the game, and I think this change is very positive. Before we started, I was talking about Guild Wars 2 and how they changed their PvP, and the only mode they have is Conquest. So I was very skeptical at the beginning. I was like, just Conquest, no team deathmatch. Like, what's the point? This will feel so unrealistic. And to an extent, it did. In time, it really grew on me because camping is no longer viable. Holding a point becomes a lot more viable. Throwing people around, crowd control, kind of those strategic maneuvers becomes a lot bigger factor when what you're trying to do is not just kill, which killing is still the most important thing, is to hold a point. It rewards the smarts and looking at the overall strategy. And I love the biggest factor, I will say, that made me fall in love with the Conquest mode is this. You have a entrenched enemy position, or you have a juggernaut just running through your forces. A force of very good players, very good units just went there to assault. In other words, a doom stack, so to speak. You cannot beat that. What you can do, you can outsmart it. You can go around the map, be like, okay, you want to cap the point B? You can cap the point B. We're just going to get point A, C, and D. Okay, you got B. Okay, now we're just going to cap right behind you. So you can outmaneuver your opponents that you cannot fight head on. Now, speed has become one of the major problems, which I think would make a great segue into talking about cavalry.
No. I still don't know how that's all related to elephants. Apart from that, the speed elephants also have significant speed.
Yes.
But what I wanted to say is that I remembered what I wanted to counter you on. So you mentioned kiting as a tactic against elephants, right? So yeah,
Yes.
in the past it was viable, but I mean, viable in air quotes. But what you give up through kiting is terrain, which was an issue before
Yes.
and is issue even more now. So if you want to kite the elephant, keep running away from it, which you very often just have to, because of just how strong the elephants are. They don't go down quickly enough, or cannot be
let me
stopped
clarify
through melee units. Let me finish. All right.
Yeah.
So if you just use the elephants to force the enemy away, well, the other units in your team just cap the point that you use the elephants to force the enemy away from. So that is another very good thing that elephants are good at. That, well, previously was also relevant, but now is even more relevant and makes the elephants even stronger in this game mode. And therefore, something needs to be done about elephants, such as, being able to route them, or just make the elephants take more damage, or make them less potent at just pulling through units, like make them suffer some kind of pull through penalty, just like other units do. Because if you try to pull infantry through infantry or cavalry through infantry, that unit is going to die because you're trying to pull through. Elephants don't give a shit. So I would maybe change it so that elephants do give a shit. They still survive, all right, but they take considerable damage. So they pay for the fact that they can pass through a unit with their HP, instead of just being able to just do it without any punishment, pretty much.
Yes. Now let me clarify on the whole kiting element. When you kite, under normal circumstances, you're right. But when I'm talking about kiting an elephant, what I'm talking about is the elephant follows one unit and exposes its back, so my two other units can shoot it to kill it.
Yes, but there are also 3 elephants, not 1. Ha ha ha, get wrecked.
Yes, exactly. So at that point, you need combined arms to deal with it. But unfortunately, that's pretty much the only viable tactic to deal with elephants, to separate them from the enemy and then divide and conquer. Not the ability, but the strategy.
Yeah. So you either need 2v1, right, or 1v1. I mean, javelins are supposed to be counter to elephants, but they aren't.
Yeah,
1v1 javelins cannot beat elephants, and that's it.
Correct.
Pretty much nothing
I would
can
like to
beat
propose a
1v1
question.
elephants, apart from pikes. But elephants can just run around pikes because pikes are not going to
Yes.
catch them. As
Yeah,
for
when you're
Can a man outrun an elephant? No.
no.
unless he's on a horse, but then it's the horse that's runs.
Yes.
But it's not a
So
cavalry. Deals any
technically,
real
they
damage.
shouldn't be able to kite an elephant at all.
Well, yeah, that's the cool mechanic that we have with the missiles actually weighting down the elephant. So if it has fucking 100 javelins in its ass, it's going to slow down.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I
Which
was
is
joking.
Yeah, it is a really
Yeah.
good mechanic, but the slowdown is not significant enough, right? Because it is supposed to help the range in its kite to the elephants. But
And it drops off very fast.
Yeah, it drops off very fast, and it's not strong enough. So the elephants, the slow that they receive is not significant enough, and the javelin still cannot deal. So I would just just increasing the number, right? Instead of the slow factor per one javelin being, I don't know, well, I have no idea what it is, right? But let's say
1%.
0.08, whatever, right? Make it to 0.1 or whatever. And yeah, each javelin slows the speed by 0.1. To just change the values. I have no idea what the values are, but I know they're too small at the moment. So yeah, that's one of the many solutions to that.